Hi readers, welcome to another day of reading class. So today we are going to do lesson 2 in our reading mastery book. Remember, we're going to work in this for the first 12 stories, the first 12 lessons, and then we're going to step away from this for a while and do some other things. So you will need your reading mastery book, and you're going to need your packet again that has the picture of the geese on it. So make sure you have those two things. You'll remember that yesterday we met Old Henry. So we are going to continue on with that story today. All right? All right, scholars, we are ready for lesson 2. So open your reading book. And you want to get to our second lesson. We're going to start again today, just like yesterday, with vocabulary words. We have 2 columns today that we're going to go through. In column 1, all the words have endings on them again. So you want to be really careful. Make sure you're catching all of those endings as we read. All right, ready? Word 1 is flocks. What word? Excellent. A flock of birds is a group of birds that lives together and flies together. Flocks. Word 2, we had this word yesterday, migration. What word? Well done. Word 3, answers. What word? I hope you know all the answers to my questions today. Let's keep going. Word 4 is flapping. What word? Great. Word 5 is flyers. What word? So geese are flyers, meaning they're animals that can fly. Flyers. And word 6 is shorter. What word? Good. Let's go through column 1 again, the quick way. We're going to go all the way down the list. Here we go. Ready? Flocks, migration, answers, flapping, flyers, shorter. Good work. Find column 2. So column 2, we had this state yesterday. Word 1 is Florida. What word? Good. Word 2 is yearly. What word? Excellent. Word 3 is sudden. What word? Great. All of a sudden, Mr. Long came bursting through the door. That would surprise you if I did that right now, wouldn't it? Word 4, breeze. Like there was a nice breeze outside. Breeze. I like it when there's a little breeze, otherwise I get kind of hot. What's that 4th word? Good. Word 5, migrate. What word? And you'll remember we had that word yesterday, right? Animals that go through a migration, that travel to the same place each year. They go through a migration. So when they're doing that, it's called migrating. Word 6 is lonely. What word? Good. Let's go through this column the quick way. Here we go. Back to the top. Ready? Florida. Yearly. Sudden. Breeze. Migrate. Lonely. Very nice. So scholars, if you need to, you can pause right now and practice any of the words up here in the vocabulary again. But if you feel set, we're going to move on to part B. If you need to practice, pause for a moment. Otherwise, let's go to part B. So we are today going to read the next story about Old Henry. But first, we're going to read this information passage that gives us some more facts about geese. Remember, we learned a lot about geese yesterday. So, scholars, the information passage starts right here, and then it's going to move over to the top of this page as well. So make sure you're tracking along with me correctly. More facts about geese. Most wild geese are born in Canada and spend every summer in Canada. So scholars, where did we just hear they're born? I hope you said Canada. So the map shows part of Canada up here. Right? It's a very large country that is north of the United States in the continent of North America. Touch Canada on your page. Good. Let's continue. So geese live in flocks that may have more than 50 geese in them. In the fall, flocks fly south to their winter home. Then in the spring, they return to their summer home in Canada. So, scholars, in which direction do the flocks fly in the fall? Right, they fly south. And in which direction does the flock fly in the spring? You got it, they fly north. So scholars, they go south in the fall, and they go north in the spring to go back. This yearly flying to the south and to the north is called a migration. When geese migrate in the fall, they fly south. In which direction do they migrate in the spring? Do you remember? Right, north. The geese that you're reading about migrate to a place in Florida. The map shows the path of the migration from Big Trout Lake in Canada to Crooked Lake in Florida. So scholars, let's take a look at that. They start here at Big Trout Lake in Canada, right? And they fly south in the fall to Crooked Lake in Florida, right? This is Florida, this state right here in the United States. So they're leaving Big Trout Lake in the fall and flying to Crooked Lake. And then in the spring, they go back. They fly north back to Big Trout Lake. Okay, we're up here on the top of this next part now. Are you still tracking with me? I hope you are. That's building good reading success. Geese migrate south in the fall because the lakes and rivers freeze in Canada. Farther south, lakes and rivers do not freeze. So, if someone asked you why they fly south, could you tell them? I hope you would remember to tell them that lakes freeze in Canada in the winter, and they have to fly further south because the lakes there don't freeze. Our last paragraph. Scholars, you're doing a great job today. Not all flocks migrate to the same place in the south. Some flocks migrate over 3,000 miles to their winter home. Some migrate only 1,000 miles. So, scholars, a final question for you about this information passage. Do all flocks migrate south to the same place? No, we found out they don't. Good work. Scholars, I want you to read that information passage now. So press pause for a moment and read that information passage before we continue on to our story today. All right, how did your reading go? Let's go to part C. So our title today of our story is Henry Meets Tim. Follow along as I read the story. Henry stayed in Canada while the other geese in the flock went south for the winter. It was lonely being all alone on Big Trout Lake. But Henry had felt lonely for the last 5 years. That was when his wife had died. Henry still missed her. She had been his mate since they were both 3 years old. Scholars, I'm going to pause right there for a moment, so hold that spot. What country does Henry live in? Canada, right. In which direction had the rest of the flock gone? I hope you said south. And how long ago did we hear that Henry's wife died? Look back in this paragraph if you need to. Right, she died 5 years ago. So the story said that she had been his mate since they were both 3 years old. So they've been together a long time. Right? That means every year they had baby geese and took care of them from the time they were 3 until the time they were both 30. Wow. All right, let's continue. So Henry waited for winter. He spent time walking, swimming, and looking at the sky. Every now and then, a flock of geese would fly by. Henry would listen to the leader as he honked directions to the other geese. The days were getting shorter and colder. Henry knew that very soon Big Trout Lake would freeze. 9 days after the others had left, old Henry saw another Canada goose walking along the shore. Old Henry could tell that it was a very young goose. It wasn't very big, and it didn't seem to know where it was going. So, scholars, did you catch that the weather, the story, the days are changing, the weather's changing each day? The weather's getting colder. And when it says that the days are getting shorter, days don't actually get shorter, but what that means is the amount of daylight in the day keeps getting shorter, which means winter is around the corner. Right? So 9 days had gone by before he saw another goose. Wow. I'm going to continue. Hey there, Henry called. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be on your way to Florida. The young goose said, Oh, I couldn't learn to fly because my leg was hurt. Old Henry knew about that problem. When young geese learn to fly, they start out by running faster and faster. They hold their wings out to the side as they run. Then they flap their wings and fly. But if they can't run fast, they can't fly. Later, geese learn to take off from the water, but that's not the first thing they learn about flying. So, scholars, we're almost finished, but I'm going to ask a couple questions about that part. So, make sure you're paying attention to what they do to learn to fly, right? So, the first thing they do is they run faster and faster, and they have their wings out, right? Can you picture that? Maybe hold out your arms right now. Right? And they're running and their arms are out. Well, their wings, your arms, but their wings are out and then they start flapping them and it lifts them up to fly. But can you imagine why, if a goose has a hurt leg, how it would be hard then to learn to fly? Just think about that for a moment. Well, Henry said, if you don't have anything better to do, swim out here and join me. I would be glad to have your company. Scholars, this is a good time to pause now, and I want you to read today's story, right? So go back to the beginning at part C. I want you to read the story just like you did yesterday. Maybe there's someone different you can read to today. Another pet, or a different family member, or a different stuffed animal. But I want you to remember that the best way to practice is to read it aloud to somebody, right? So that they can hear you and you can hear yourself, right? That's how we're going to build strong fluency. So pause for a moment and read the story to someone. Excellent. Now that you've done that, remember we're going to move into our packet work. So we're on to lesson 2 today. So if you open your packet, right, lesson 2 is right here. Lesson 2 at the top. And you'll notice once again, we have our little table, our rubric of how to best work to get your 5 points today. So remember, part of the question is in my answer so that it makes sense to readers. All parts of the question answered. So that again, scholars, means you want to make sure you're answering both of these things and that you're catching this word when right here and answering about that as well. Textual evidence, right? What did you read? What proof do you have from the story? What did you read in the story that's evidence of the answer? Right? A thoughtful text to self or text to text connection. The second question, right, is connecting to you, right? So that you've been doing some thinking about that and you're answering that. And then lastly, capitalization and proper punctuation. So take a moment to make sure you capitalized your sentences and you put punctuation marks at the end. Likely a period, because you're answering questions. It says, in this lesson, old Henry is very sad because he misses his wife. What happened to her? So I can think of how you could probably answer that in 2 words, but does a 2-word answer mean you're using words from the question? No, it does not. So I could picture a good starter for this being old Henry is very sad because, right, and answer that. Ooh, there was that word because. Remember yesterday I told you how much I love that word because. And then the second question, have you ever missed someone a lot? When? So there is someone I've missed a lot. Because, bloop, right? Or so-and-so, like bloop, Bob, whomever, is someone I miss because, bloop. That would be a good, thoughtful connection to yourself. So scholars, there's a reason that I gave you 3 lines here and 4 lines here, right? I want you to make sure you're answering the questions in complete sentences and getting out a good full thought. That's a good way for us to be working on writing skills while we're also reading. So good luck, and remember, submit a photo of your work when you're finished. Bye, scholars.